What is up, Waffle Gang? I do hope you are well. My name is Mark, and today we're covering some more r/am I the butthole. If you'd like to skip the initial waffle, timestamps are in the description and along the timeline below, so please feel free to use them. But if you are new here, please consider hitting that like, that subscribe, that notification bell too if you really fancy it. And just a huge thank you for taking the time out of your day to be here. Spending 20 minutes or so listening to a video means the absolute world to me. Thank you so much for doing you. I hope you have an awesome day ahead of you, and let's crack on with today's stories. Much love, guys. Now, our first story comes from a throwaway account. Am I the arsehole for using the rest of my daughter's tuition money to pay for her siblings' schooling? I'm 47 female, a mother of 3, one daughter 20 and 2 boys 19 and 18. My husband died 3 years ago unexpectedly, and our lives have been hard ever since. My husband passed away 6 months after we moved to a new country in Europe, and ever since, my father has been our primary financial carer, and he financially supports my children's schooling and whatever activities that are needed to be paid for. My father passed away last month due to a kidney failure, and I'm in the process of inheriting some of his money. 6 months before he passed away, he gave me $5,000 to pay for my daughter's university as she was starting her first year. I paid for the first semester, $1,800, and the rest I decided to spend on my 2 boys' private schooling. My father does not know that my boys are behind in school, and I couldn't bear telling him in fear of humiliation. I didn't want him to be disappointed in me. My daughter found out a few months ago that I spent her tuition money on her siblings and was really upset with me, but I promised her that I was going to figure out and pay the rest of the first year when the time comes. She was okay with that. But due to my father passing away during her first semester finals, I was not able to come up with the money in time to pay her second semester. The inheritance money is going to take a couple of months to come through, and my daughter was incredibly upset. We had arguments, she called me uncaring and selfish. She screamed at me for spending her money, but in my opinion, she was being selfish calling it her money. So I told her exactly that. Her brothers have a right to an education as well. I couldn't leave them still behind in school, and I paid a lot of money to the school they're in right now to help progress them quicker. She argued that she had to endure studying in public high school in a completely different language that she didn't speak or understand during her senior year, and that her brothers dropped out of it because they couldn't handle it and were spoiled rotten, and that's why they are behind. And she said she didn't demand private schools out of respect for our lack of money. She also said that she's studying in a cheap university in a major that she wouldn't have picked because the university only had 2 departments in English language. That was her point, and she wasn't being selfish at all. I feel like she is being super ungrateful. I kept her well fed and put a roof over her head, and she was speaking and screaming at me disrespectfully. But I feel a little bad, but a university accepted to give her some time until my inheritance money to pay, so it's not a big deal. I feel like the arsehole because I should have thought it through and took account that my father might pass away unexpectedly, but how could I have known? She is not speaking to me right now and is convinced that I'm an arsehole. Am I the arsehole? And there's a couple of update edits on this one as well, which we will cover shortly, but I think you are going to be the arsehole in this situation. 1, because your father gave you that money to pay for your daughter's university fees, and that was the purpose of it. It sounds like he said that from the way you wrote it in this post. And then there's another part where you didn't actually tell your father about your financial stability at the time, and because you was embarrassed about it, so you didn't tell him. So that again makes you an arsehole in this situation. Now, I know it's incredibly hard to do, but it sounded like you needed to reach out at that point. And it sounds like your daughter herself has been the brunt of a lot of bad decision making here. And I can't blame her for being upset and feeling the way she is right now. So I think that does make you the arsehole in this situation. And we'll start off with Nice Button 7 saying, yes, you're the arsehole. You upended her life. You prioritized the well-being of her male siblings, and you spent her education fund. Part of this was due to you wanting to avoid feeling embarrassed about your sons not doing as well as your daughter in school. Caring for her basic needs is a bare minimum. Where is your concern for her future, for her happiness? She has endured your poor decisions with no complaints until it hit the point where she might have her future entirely taken away, with no time for her to plan around your decisions. You owe her an apology. And Raziel says, you're the arsehole. Your father gave you the money specifically for your daughter's tuition. End of story. Also, why aren't you working? Your children are basically all grown up and can be left alone at home. It's rich of you to say that you kept her fed and gave her a roof over her head, which is a minimum for a parent to do and doesn't require excessive thankfulness, while not actually being the one to bring the money in. In the end of the day, it was not you who kept her fed and clothed, but your father. And Dramira says, I understand what you might be feeling right now, but logically you're the arsehole. Your father gave you this money to pay for your daughter's tuition, so it's her money. Maybe you should have consulted with your daughter first. And J25 says, well, it's a good thing you feel bad about what you said and did to your daughter because you're the arsehole. Your daughter who worked her way through public school, made it through to university and is currently working her way through the language barrier that's come with it is now suffering because of her two younger siblings who, according to you, haven't worked nearly as hard compared to her despite attending a private school and being adults. Favoritism if I've ever seen it. You shouldn't have made her believe that you were definitely going to fund her university fees if you weren't actually definitely going to fund her university fees. I can sympathise with wanting to help your two sons out, but by financially troubling your daughter, showing her sons, likely self-inflicted, issues are clearly a bigger priority compared to your daughter's issues. And using money given to you for an explicit purpose which you didn't fulfill. You managed to help your two sons in the least fair way possible against both your 20 female and your late husband. Do you mind me asking how you used the money on your two sons' private schooling? As in, did you use it to buy resources like books or learning facilities, or did you fund the private school fees themselves? Now we'll head over to the edit. So it says, edits, I will apologise to my daughter and I will make it up to her when I receive my inheritance. I love my daughter dearly and I will do better as a mother to provide for her. I accept my you're the arsehole verdict. Edit 2, people have been asking me how my children are going to work in a country they don't speak the language of. My daughter hasn't mentioned any of her plans yet, plan on moving to a different country after they graduate university and will be working wherever they go. I assume it's a more English speaking country. I love where I'm living and I own my own apartment here. And now I turn this one to you guys. What do you guys think of this situation? Let me know in the comments below. And our next story is from a throwaway account. Am I the arsehole for flipping out on my son for helping his mum get a disability lawyer? My son 20 male, my ex-girlfriend 47 female, and I 46 male met up the other day because my son, after taking 2 gap years to work, wants to go to college next year and needed to go over financial aid information. His mum had been recently out of work due to health issues, whereas I had an increase in income. My ex-girlfriend and my son then broke the news to me that he helped his mum retain a disability lawyer to see if her scar tissue adhesions she had from her C-section could qualify her for a disability support. I glared at my son and absolutely flipped out. I asked him why the hell he'd spend hard-earned money on something like that. If his mum was honest with him about her medical and financial history, he would have known has been deemed as far from a disability as can be. When my then girlfriend had our son 20 years ago, she complained about severe abdominal pain. We met because we were both avid kickboxers and tennis players, but after the baby, she would sit on the couch with a heating pad and cry. At work, people would find her in the bathroom throwing up. She pretty much bankrupted herself going from doctor to doctor. Eventually, an obgyn pulled me aside and told me, because I admitted that I've been distant and resentful, that she was just stressed to the point of psychosis, and the abdominal spasms she was saying was, like baby kicks, might be psychosis. She recommended a psychiatrist and said that my girlfriend should be able to be like all the other mothers, then go back to work. When we asked a friend who worked in law about whether she could claim disability for a C-section scar, he gave us both an incredulous look and recommended a therapist. My dad was drunk one night and accused me of enabling my girlfriend's Munchausen. I watched an NHS video for that pronunciation, so don't get on my back. After those encounters, I was depressed and fell into a workaholic daze, and we split up after I took a promotion on the other side of the country. My girlfriend complained about on and off problems, about not having money to hire a good lawyer to defend her case. Finally, her doctors recommended a hysterectomy for apparent cyst in her uterus. Now my son says because she had to quit her job after complications from the surgery for something his mother told him was because of a C-section, that he wanted to contribute part of the $2,000 retainer to get a good lawyer for his mum. I told my ex I couldn't believe she was dragging my son into a fight when all the doctors told her that was pretty much in her head. I told my son that if this is how he wants to spend his funds, I did not want to contribute to his college because this wasn't a responsible utilization of the funds. My son flipped out and said he believes his mum because he's seen her in pain before and she told him what caused it. Am I the arsehole for being mad at my son for thinking that the government would ever classify his mum as disabled? Now, what I don't get, in the second to last paragraph here, it says, I told my ex I couldn't believe that she was dragging my son into a fight when all the doctors told her that it's pretty much in her head. But previously in there, it says, finally, a doctor's recommended a hysterectomy for apparent cysts in her uterus. So how can that be nothing, you Burke? All I can say is, thank God she's away from you, man. You sound like an arsehole to me. The whole post just screams of like, you didn't want to help her. Like, she was to the point where you guys used to have hobbies like kickboxing and tennis. Then after the baby, she would sit on the couch and cry with a heat pad. And then at work, she was in the bathroom throwing up and you still thought nothing was wrong. You didn't support her in finding out the root cause of this situation. You just sort of put it down as, oh, she's making this up. This is all in her head. Oh my word. Don't get me started, guys. I'm starting to get heated here. I'm stood up again. Yes, you're the arsehole, but OK Sympathy says, you're the arsehole. I'm so glad this woman has ended her relationship with you. It is not all uncommon for people, especially women, to seek answers for their chronic pain for years and be written off and dismissed by doctors. Your ex actually found an answer eventually, cysts in her uterus, and you still insist she made it all up. Your son is far nicer and more compassionate than you, and I'm glad he's helping his mum get what she needs. And Amuna says you're the arsehole and the majority of the medical field for how they treat women when it comes to their bodies. I don't know about qualifying as a disability, but you are very lacking in compassion towards your ex. There are many women who go undiagnosed for years because their doctors classify them as whiny and neurotic. Help out your son at least and stop making your ex into a villain for a pain you know nothing about. And Queen K26 says you're the arsehole. First of all, it's not your money, so you don't really get a say on what your adult son does with it. Second, I feel so bad for your ex. If your ex had to give up hobbies she used to love and was thrown up that often, something is clearly wrong. Do you know how difficult it is for women to be taken seriously by doctors? I have a chronic illness myself, and I can't even count the number of times a doctor has told me my pain was from period cramps or implied I was being overdramatic. Look, I'm not saying she's lying about her medical issues, but I don't think there's enough proof that she is either. And a Nota Cocktail says, you're the arsehole. Sounds to me like she's in some sort of pain since she gave birth. Newsflash, no one gets a hysterectomy for funsies. Just because you think it's BS based on some 20-year-old knowledge, that doesn't mean it is. Even your quotes around health issues is gross. Also, your son believes his mum has a case, probably from watching her be in pain for the last 20 years. Whether it's psychomatic or physical, it sounds like it's hindered her life, and it's not your money. For the cheap seats, it's you who is the arsehole. Now I turn this one to you guys. What do you guys think of this situation? Let me know in the comments below. And our next story comes from Jake Hill 37. Am I the arsehole for causing my family to miss my brother's wedding? My wife and I just lost our second baby. Our first was a stillbirth. Our daughter lived for only a month due to a medical condition. We didn't get to take her home, but we have a few pictures of her before she passed away 3 weeks ago. It's difficult trying to get used to living like that, but we have no choice. My wife and I missed out on some family events, including my brother's wedding. Everyone was being considerate and gave us enough space to regain strength. I work long hours and night shifts while my wife stays at home. I was on shift the day of my brother's wedding. A few days ago, my mum and my sisters were complaining about my brother's fiance, no child rule, and they wanted someone to watch the kids for a few hours. My sister suggested that we do that, but I told her I had to work and my wife wasn't up to it, and I really thought that was the end of the discussion. On the day of the wedding, I left home for work at 3. I got a call from my wife at 5 telling me that my cousin just came and dropped 6 kids from my family at our house and told her that he'd come back to pick them up later. I was fucking livid. I went home and I started calling my sister, cousin and sister-in-law to come pick up their kids right then. They kept stalling, but I demanding they tell my cousin to turn around and come pick the kids up. Instead, they started showing up one by one, taking their kids, cussing me out, claiming I was overreacting since my wife didn't say anything. My wife doesn't know how to say no, so it's on me to set boundaries, although it's hard with them calling me the problem. My parents said I caused the family to miss most of my brother's wedding by looking for someone else to watch the kids and basically blame me for refusing to take the kids for just a few hours, saying I don't understand because I don't have kids and I don't know how hard it is. That line cut too deep. I've already had 2 kids that I lost. Everyone's arguing with me for causing them this issue on the wedding and said I ruined it instead of doing one little favour. I sent a mass text telling them they can start blaming each other instead of us, after I told them we couldn't watch the kids. Now they won't even want to see me. Was I the arsehole for what I did? Gee whiz, how can one family have such a bunch of arseholes within it? Obviously OP isn't the arsehole in this situation, but that one line in itself, I mean the whole post stinks, don't get me wrong, the whole post is absolutely horrible to OP and I feel so sorry for everything that they've been through. But when the family turns round, and the parents of all people who said it, saying that they don't have kids so they don't know how hard it is. I mean, cut them all out, man. Just cut them out. I think if I was in your shoes at that time, I wouldn't be able to forgive any of my family for doing that. You're suffering yourself and then expecting your wife, who's also going through a lot of stuff mentally right now, and they just dump the kids there and then just leave. What entitled assholes, man. Again, if you do see this, I'm so sorry for everything you're going through and just much love to you guys, man. But Gula Zombie Queen says, holy shit, not the arsehole. I don't understand how you possibly think you are. You clearly told them no. They smashed your boundaries, refused to listen, and dumped their kids. When you rightfully insisted they come get them, they started doubling down and throwing barbed statements. Your family is undoubtedly selfish, petty, and terrible. Don't feel bad for what you did. Just because they're blood doesn't mean they aren't capable of being awful. And Free Palpitation says, not the arsehole, you are still a father. Your children just aren't here with you on the plane of existence. Your family shouldn't rely on you to take their kids when you said your wife isn't up to it, which is totally understandable, all things considered. And you had been working. It was absolutely inappropriate of them to think you would even take their kids. As for your family, you are not a babysitting service. You are grieving the loss of a child, a hurt that will never truly go away. It is a pain they won't feel unless it happens to them, and a pin I know you wouldn't wish on them. They do not understand things like this can be harmful to you and your very obviously grieving wife. They are the arseholes, not you or your wife. And the other Formilia says, not the arsehole, but your family is fucking full of them. My god, sending my deepest condolences to you and your wife. And Queen K26 says, wow, massive not the arsehole. If I read that correctly, you only lost your baby 3 weeks ago, and these people have the nerve to expect your wife to be up to watching 6 kids. That's a lot even for someone who didn't just go through a traumatic experience. You did absolutely nothing wrong, and good on you for standing up for your wife. And now I turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let me know in the comments below. And let's have another cheeky one. So this one's from a throwaway account. Am I the arsehole for making my son eat leftovers when everyone else had his favourite meal? Throwaway because I don't want this linked to my main. On phone, sorry for formatting. Me, 34 male, and my wife, 35 female, have 2 kids. Adam, 12, and Jasmine, 8. We both came from cultures where rich people wasted a ton of food, while there was people starving just around the corner. So we're conscious about food waste. Also, I've seen relatives with kids that were extremely picky eaters, and it wasn't something I wanted to deal with. So when Adam was old enough to start being fussy about his food, we introduced a new rule. If you don't finish your dinner, it's going to be your breakfast the next day. This was mainly to get him to finish his veggies. When he was old enough, he started picking his own serving sizes so we won't force him to eat extra. We're both good cooks, so he enjoys and finishes most of his meals promptly. We kind of forgot about the rule for a while until Jasmine started becoming fussy recently, so we introduced it again. To make it fair, Adam is also doing it. Last night, he overserved himself and couldn't finish a lot of his food. This morning, my wife's family came over for breakfast. COVID guidelines allow, so we wanted to treat them and made her special French toast and homemade croissants. Adam's favourite meal, which he got excited for. But when we sat for breakfast, he was shocked to find a plate full of leftovers waiting for him. His face got gloomy and he ate in silence. He was too full by the end to eat any of the breakfast. After breakfast, her parents berated us for being cruel and torturing him. We defended ourselves by saying that it would be unfair on Jasmine if her brother gets to avoid his leftovers, but she never does. Now I think I could have been the arsehole because he has been really good about eating his food recently. Also, we could have just made him finish it for lunch. So Reddit, am I the arsehole? Now I know a couple of people in my life who have they've had unhealthy relationships with food in their past, and it all came from, when parents said stuff to them in their past, and it's created this this mental block in their head in the way that they treat food. And I'm not saying this is going to be the actual case in this scenario. You know, it may work for them. Alarm bells are ringing in my head in this situation just because of that. And let's just put a scenario out there. So your child, say you already knew you was having a special breakfast tomorrow, you knew family was coming round, and one of your children overserved their dinner plate from the night before, and now they're in the situation where they know they have to eat all this food on their plate, or they know they're going to get it tomorrow and they're going to miss out on this special breakfast that's upcoming. And so you're creating the situation now where they're having to overeat just so they can get that breakfast tomorrow. It's incentivizing unhealthy eating rather than sitting back and saying, oh, I'm too full to eat this now. They're going, oh, I have to eat this because otherwise I'm going to be stuck with this tomorrow. And that's the issues that I can see happening here. So I don't think it's a great way of dealing with food, but that's just my opinion. But Drowning in Spam says, you're the arsehole. This was a special visit and treat. Making a single error in portion size then punishing him is really an arsehole move when you say Adam is usually good about it. Making food part of rewards and punishments is exactly how children get eating disorders. This really disturbed me to read how you punished him for something so minor and ruined what should have been an enjoyable visit. And Magic Tube Sock of Joy says, oh god, you're the arsehole. I grew up in a house where we couldn't leave the table until we cleaned our plates. Didn't matter if you weren't hungry. Didn't matter if food you hated. Didn't matter if you're usually good about eating your vegetables. I'm 41 now. I've had a lifetime of problems with food and my weight. Food should never be a reward or a punishment. It's just food. It's not a moral or immoral thing. What you did left a scar. Your rigidity left him feeling excluded and disappointed. You're giving them a weird relationship towards food, a thing they will require for the rest of their lives. You could have given it to him for lunch. You already know that was an arsehole thing to do. And username 52 says, you're the arsehole. He overserved himself once in years of this rule and gets left out of a family event. The family came over and all had a special meal, his favourite, and you wouldn't let him eat it. This rule might sound okay on the surface, but just forces unhealthy eating, especially if this is the consequence. It was one time. Encourage everyone taking smaller portions to start, and then taking more if they want. Also, had he taken a smaller portion, there still would have been leftovers. What would have happened with those leftovers? Would they have still been served them, or it's okay to throw those away because they didn't touch someone's plate? Now, I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation and how would you deal with it? Let me know in the comments below. Now, once again, guys, thank you for being here today. I hope you did enjoy today's stories. And if you did, please let me know in the comments below. And if you want to support the channel further, you absolutely can, but never, ever, ever any pressure to do so. You can click that join button down below for YouTube or click the link in the description for Patreon and join it up there. A huge thank you for taking the time out of your day to be here, showing love to the channel, being on Twitter, YouTube, Discord, everywhere. It means the world to me, and you are absolutely amazing for doing so. I hope you have a fantastic day ahead of you, whatever you're doing today, and don't forget to let me know in the comments as well, because you know I love to hear it, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Much love.
I've been thinking that I can't let you go.